The sun will come out, but we've been struck endlessly. Someday we'll find love. 'Cause after the storms, when the flowers bloom.
During my senior year of undergrad, I decided to take the opportunity of a lifetime and study abroad in France and Morocco. As a Black woman in America, I was starting to feel like so much of my identity was attached to the oppression of my culture. Now, I love being Black, and for the most part, I love being American, but something in me desired to see the world through a different lens. And I thought, what better way to do that besides traveling across the world to learn about culture, diversity, and identity in two very different countries. So follow me on my journey of world and self-discovery. To give you some context, I am on a 3-week study abroad program that not only explores the rich fabric that make up France and Morocco, but it also exposes the complex history of social, political, and cultural ties that connect these two countries. Now, if you want to know a little background on how I chose this program and the application process, check out the link below.
On our way to the
Pause. Before I introduce Summer, I want to take a moment to talk about how important it is to build connections and relationships when you are traveling abroad. When you are going abroad, it's a very shocking experience, especially when you're studying abroad. It's deep cultural learning, and it can be a lot to take in. And so it's really important that you're comfortable with the people that you are around, because essentially you're building lifelong memories with these people.
Yes, the river, a little nice dinner.
Okay, what's up with you?
I don't know, maybe a chicken option, maybe a little vegetarian.
Yeah, actually, I think here Dr. Conklin offered me some fish, so I might get some good fish here.
Wait, let me get a bite.
Okay, look, I love to share eating. That's one of the best. Like, that's one of the things I'm learning about France. Like, the food is so much more important, and the experience is more important than like being greedy. I feel like American culture encourages you to be really greedy.
Yeah,
and,
like buy your own stuff. Yeah,
and really big plates.
This is
but
definitely sharing.
they have smaller portions. Like when we went to the cafe, it was pretty like small portions, but enough to get you full, because you don't need to like overfill yourself.
No,
and it makes you want to just take your time and eat. Because I'm still hungry.
Yeah, I was gonna say the American in me though. Like I did want my water to be this big. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was like this.
Yeah, overall, are you liking the trip?
Yeah, loving it so far. Happy to be here for
What's your favorite part so far? This is the one day.
I think doing the cafe and like everybody was eating off of everybody's plate. It was just good vibes.
Yeah,
I liked it there.
Yeah.
And the sweet treat.
That okay. And I didn't even eat it all, but I got some for later.
Yeah, it's
I might have the munchies later.
Oh yeah.
One of the first lessons I learned on the trip is that nothing is ever going to be what you expect it to be. Our perceptions of another country is deeply rooted in our experience in our country and what we see in the media. As a media professional and a large consumer of social media, I did a lot of online research on France, but honestly, no amount of research can prepare you for what you'll experience abroad. So my advice is to keep an open mind and think critically when you travel abroad, because I promise, right now you see me eating dinner on the Seine River, but that is far from what I've seen in France.
J'ai entendu.
The weather in Paris was very gloomy and rainy the whole time, but I was just happy to be there, to be honest. We used public transportation to get around for the most part, and it was pretty cool to see that Grl was being promoted there, just to show you like how expansive the reach of hip-hop was. It was exciting to see because I'm a music head, but right now I'm on my way to the Musée de Berlin. At this museum, which is filled with artifacts from ancient civilizations, we were challenged to ponder on the question on whether or not museums like these contribute to the colonizing and dominating mindset over indigenous cultures. So after the museum tour, I sat down with my classmates to hear their perspectives. We're gonna resume and talk about the conversation on how it made us feel that, these native places that have been colonized, their art and artifacts are being taken and used for profit by their colonizers.
When we were talking about it earlier in class, it made me think of like African American, culture, and like Caucasians, like with like box braids and like stuff like we do. And it's just like, okay, y'all judge us, but then y'all get the same exact hairstyle, or like try to find ways to sell it or do it yourselves. But I didn't
profiting without the experience.
Right. And
The
then
black
like when we do it,
experience.
they judge us. It's like, and that's what people were talking about earlier when they were like, okay, well, if France was to do the same thing that they're doing to Berlin, that they would be like, no, I'm not selling you, like, whatever. And it's like, exactly, because y'all like to do stuff, but we can't do the same thing back to you.
And I think that was one of my biggest issues, just like cherry picking off what you said, Chelsea. Like, I think it's so bizarre for another person to like narrate the trauma of another person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
how
when you put it like that.
Because how are you gonna tell me like that's like a white person telling me like how they feel about growing up being like you just can't. Never, like as much history as you learn, as much movies, as much of the culture.
Because it's empathy.
Yeah,
it's empathy.
You'll never be able to truly like genuinely explain like how a person feels. Like, and I feel like from that point, like how you were saying earlier too, like or even you're saying like, do we really know if that's really the true like meaning behind all these things? 'Cause you don't really know what
they could be saying, and like, I was talking about spirituality and the spirit of the people and how like they call themselves taking the spirit out of that artifact, and I'm like, you don't even know what you're
Spirits, you don't just pick it up and throw it away. That's not how they work.
And it was kind of, that just shows like the ignorance sometimes that comes behind like cross-cultural understanding, especially when it comes to like religion and spirituality, because it is so sacred. And it's like, it's very ignorant to say that you are taking the meaning out of something, like, or you're putting it into a different context. I feel like you can't really do that when it comes to religion and spirituality.
As we reflected on the dark history of how indigenous cultures have been destroyed and colonized for the sake of capitalism, we got really passionate because you cannot ignore how these cultures are still being colonized. And Chelsea raised a great question, perhaps the only question that matters, but will always be ignored as long as capitalism rules our world.
And what are the cultures saying about this? What are the cultures saying about this?
On a lighter note, one thing about the Eiffel Tower, it is going to be seen. When I say there was a rainbow across, and it was the most beautiful thing I've seen in my life, and then we got to tour up the Eiffel Tower, it was so amazing. Another day has risen, and here we are about to start our tour of Peru, which is a university sitting on the outskirts of Paris. So we learned that their school was sort of pushed to the outskirts because they took a more liberal approach to education access than the Paris bourgeoisie cared to invest in. It was interesting to see how this correlated to structural racism in America, because we know how people of color are pushed to certain parts of the city and then they get unfair access to certain resources, resulting in lower education, and this perpetuates a more systematic discrimination practices. The bottom line is structural discrimination is unfortunately everywhere. A huge shout out to the students at Peru who showed us around. Thank you for your hospitality, and shout out to the Peru radio station for allowing us to air live on your radio station, and we got a chance to really share our experience on the campus.
I think it's important for the students to be able to do that.
Yeah, earlier I talked about the camaraderie at the university and how the teachers and students come together, especially hearing about the protests and how everyone has like one goal, and that's making the academic experience the best possible experience it can be. And I loved hearing about the rich history at the university, and how the university was one of the first to offer gender studies, and I think that's really important. It was also interesting to hear about the structural discrimination with the universities and how this university was pushed out of Paris, and I was like, wow. And it reminded me of a lot of the structural discrimination that happens in the United States.
This was a very impromptu part of the tour, but as the media professional I am, I have to stay ready. And my advice to you is, if you are out the country, you get an opportunity like this, just take it and be ready to share your perspective.
How does it feel to be here for the 10th time? Here we are. I mean,
I know you're amazed. I know it's the first time.
I know the first. It's just it's so much. It's so beautiful.
Y'all, the Louvre is so massive. It will literally take 3 days nonstop to get through it. So you know I had to prioritize going to see the ancient Egyptian collection. As you can see in Paris, our days were so full. I captured as much content as I could. We visited the Grand Mosque of Paris, which was my very first time in a mosque, and I would say I was awestruck at how beautiful the Arabic architecture is. It was so peaceful and tranquil, and the placement of everything was so intentional. And I would say it made me appreciate Islam as a religion so much more, just understanding the intention behind their prayer space and how the mosque is really a solace. In my Marseille and Morocco vlogs, we'll dig a little bit deeper into secularism and the separation between religion and state, especially how that connects France and Morocco, with France being its colonizing country. Unfortunately, our time in Paris ended very quickly, but we did get to do things outside of our studies, like go see Ari Lennox for only $40, and she has a huge fan base in Paris. We also tried a soul food out there, which was pretty different from soul food I know. I did some shopping and, of course, tried a bunch of different new foods. I created this vlog to inspire other people to travel and study abroad, especially Black women, because we often deprive ourselves of this opportunity. So if you were inspired by my vlog, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone else.